Okay, so are you ready to totally rethink how we learn to speak English fluently?
Yeah, bring it on.
All right, because today we're diving into something that might seem a little counterintuitive.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's all about how reading can actually be your secret weapon.
Reading for speaking.
Yep, you heard that right. Reading. It might sound a little backwards, right? You'd think talking more would be the key.
Right, more practice.
Exactly. But all the research we've got lined up for you today, it just flips the script completely. It's about rewiring your brain through reading.
Huh. I mean, it's funny how we tend to overcomplicate things sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
If you think about it, babies, they spend months just listening before they even try to utter a single word.
Oh, that's true.
Right? It's like total immersion. And reading it kind of replicates that in a way.
Soaking it all up.
Exactly. Giving your brain this huge dose of, correct grammar, vocabulary, even the rhythm of spoken English.
Oh, yeah, the musicality of it.
Exactly. And all of that without the pressure of a live conversation.
Oh, I love that. So it's like we're giving our brains this crash course in English, but in a way that feels natural. And dare I say, enjoyable.
Totally.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us who've been learning English for a while, we kind of hit this wall.
Oh, yeah, that wall.
Where we understand it, we can read articles, maybe even write decently.
Yeah, you're cruising along.
And then we try to speak, and it all falls apart.
Ah, yes, the dreaded speaking hurdle.
Why is that? Why does that happen?
It's all about the difference between recognizing the language and actually producing it.
Okay.
So reading builds up this incredible passive vocabulary, but speaking it demands this active recall.
Putting it into practice.
Exactly. It's like having all the ingredients for, a gourmet meal,
Okay.
but no clue how to cook.
I've been there.
Reading gives you all those ingredients, but to speak fluently, you've got to practice putting them all together.
We got to get in the kitchen.
Exactly.
Okay, so we need to bridge this gap between the passive knowledge and active speaking. But how does reading actually help with that? Isn't speaking a whole different beast?
It is,
Yeah.
but reading, it's like laying the foundation. You're absorbing the building blocks of the language.
Okay.
Those grammar structures, the vocabulary, even those tricky phrasal verbs.
Oh, don't even get me started on those.
I know, right? They make English so colorful, but reading exposes you to them.
Okay.
It's like building this mental map of the language.
I like that analogy.
And the more you read, the more detailed and nuanced that map becomes.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here.
That's
But
good.
let's get specific.
Sure.
One of the biggest hurdles to fluent speaking, at least for me, is vocabulary.
Vocabulary, yeah.
I'll be mid-conversation and completely blank on the right word.
Oh, yeah.
It's so frustrating.
I totally get it.
How does reading solve that?
It's not just about expanding your vocabulary. It's about understanding how words are actually used.
Right.
Think about idioms, for instance. You can memorize their meanings,
Right.
but reading it shows you how they actually fit into real conversations.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's like learning the slang of the English language. You start to sound more natural, less like you're translating from a textbook.
Less robotic, more human.
Exactly.
I see what you mean. Now, one expert suggested actually writing a sentence with a new word.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, to help remember it. But wouldn't that slow down my reading?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. You don't want to turn reading into a chore, right?
No, it should be enjoyable.
Exactly. It's all about balance. If a word really jumps out at you, write a sentence. If not, just keep flowing.
Okay,
The context itself will often be enough to solidify the meaning.
so finding that sweet spot,
I think
active engagement, but still enjoying the process.
that's the key.
What about grammar?
Grammar. Oh, yeah.
So many people get hung up on the rules and the tenses.
The dreaded grammar rules.
Was reading really help with that?
Here's the fascinating part. Studies actually show that reading helps you internalize grammar rules without having to memorize them. Yeah, by seeing correct sentence structures over and over again, your brain, it starts to recognize the patterns.
Subconsciously.
Exactly. It's like learning a dance move by watching someone else do it repeatedly.
Right.
You don't overthink the steps, you just start to feel the rhythm.
Okay, so it's absorbing the patterns naturally.
Yes.
Not through rote memorization.
Exactly.
That takes a lot of pressure off.
It does.
But there's still that issue of translating in your head before speaking.
Yes, the mental translation trap.
Forming the thought in your native language
Yeah.
and then struggling to convert it into English.
All right.
How does reading help overcome that?
That's where the whole concept of thinking in English comes in.
Okay.
So the more you read, the more your brain gets used to processing information directly in English.
Without that translation step.
Exactly. It's like building a mental muscle.
Okay.
At first, it's a bit shaky, but with practice, it becomes stronger and more automatic.
So instead of constantly translating, you start to just think and react in English more naturally.
Precisely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But with so many books out there,
I know, right?
how do we even know where to start?
That is a great question, and one that we will definitely tackle in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
We'll break down recommendations for different levels,
Nice.
from beginner all the way to advanced.
I'm on a roadmap for reading.
Exactly. And we'll share some tips for choosing books that are both effective and, most importantly, enjoyable.
Because if it's not fun, we're not going to stick with it.
Absolutely.
All right, so stay tuned for part 2, where we unlock the secrets to choosing the perfect books for your fluency journey.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be great. All right, we'll be right back after a quick break. Okay, so we're back, and I'm already itching to hit the books.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, the sheer number of choices can be so overwhelming.
It's true. It's like staring at a wall of cereal at the grocery store.
Right. Too many options. So where do we even begin?
Right. How do we choose the right books to, supercharge our speaking skills? Well, that feeling of being overwhelmed is totally understandable.
Yeah.
But the good news is finding the perfect book, it doesn't have to be like a scavenger hunt. It's all about matching your reading material to your current level and, just as importantly, your interests.
Right, because if a book is boring, we're not going to stick with it.
Exactly. Motivation is key.
No matter how good it is for our English. So let's break it down by levels. What should beginners look for?
For beginners, it's all about starting simple, with clear language, familiar themes.
Okay.
Think children's books.
Okay.
Now, I know that might sound a little silly,
Yeah.
but hear me out. Books like Charlotte's Web or the Magic Treehouse series,
Okay.
they use really basic sentence structures and everyday vocabulary.
So they're not too intimidating.
Exactly. They're engaging, but not overly complex.
Okay, so I'm getting flashbacks to cozy bedtime stories.
Right.
But wouldn't reading children's books make me sound like a child when I speak?
Not at all. Remember, it's all about building that strong foundation. These books, they expose you to the core grammar and vocabulary that native speakers use naturally.
Right, the essentials.
Exactly. Plus, the simplicity, it lets you really focus on understanding the flow of the language,
Oh, okay.
which is super important for speaking fluently.
So it's like mastering the basics before jumping into the deep end.
Precisely.
Okay, what about those who are a bit more comfortable with English? The intermediate learners.
Yeah.
What should they be reading?
Okay, so this is where we can start introducing a bit more complexity.
Okay.
Graded readers are a fantastic option.
Okay, I've heard of those.
These books are specifically designed for language learners,
Oh, okay.
with the vocabulary and grammar carefully tailored to different levels.
So you can gradually level up.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like training wheels for your reading.
I love that. And what about revisiting those young adult novels we all loved, like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games?
Oh, absolutely. Young adult fiction is perfect for intermediate learners.
Okay.
The dialogue is usually snappy and engaging.
Oh, yeah.
The stories are often gripping.
Keeps you hooked.
Exactly. And the vocabulary is like a step up from children's books, but still approachable.
So it's challenging, but not overwhelming.
Exactly. It's a fantastic way to immerse yourself in more natural, everyday language.
And plus, they're just fun to read.
Exactly.
I know I wouldn't mind revisiting Hogwarts anytime soon.
Me either.
Now, the research also mentioned newspapers, magazines, and online articles
Oh, yeah, those are great, too.
as being really beneficial.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of, incorporating those into our reading routine?
That's all about exposing yourself to real-world English.
Okay.
The kind of language people use in everyday conversations, news reports, even social media.
So it's like taking your English learning out of the classroom.
Exactly. You'll encounter slang, idioms, all sorts of different writing styles.
That's so valuable.
It's crucial for developing a well-rounded understanding of the language.
Okay, so now let's talk about the advanced learners.
Okay, the pros.
Those who are ready to tackle, the big leagues of English literature. What awaits them?
All right, so this is where you can really spread your wings and explore the rich tapestry of English literature.
Oh, love it.
Classics like Pride and Prejudice or The Great Gatsby.
Okay.
They offer beautifully crafted prose, complex characters, a glimpse into different historical periods.
Oh, fascinating.
And don't shy away from nonfiction.
Okay.
Books like Sapiens or Thinking Fast and Slow,
Okay.
they'll really challenge your vocabulary and expose you to sophisticated arguments and concepts.
So it's like leveling up from casual conversation to like eloquent debates and insightful discussions.
Exactly.
But I have to admit, the thought of tackling those literary giants can be a bit intimidating,
Oh, yeah, I get it.
even for seasoned readers.
Huh.
Any advice for approaching these more challenging texts?
Don't be afraid to take it slow.
Okay.
Savor the language, look up unfamiliar words, reread passages that you find particularly beautiful or thought-provoking.
Really immerse yourself.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to use resources like SparkNotes or online summaries if you need a little extra help understanding the nuances of the text.
So it's not about racing through the books. It's about deeply engaging with the language
Exactly.
and absorbing those subtle nuances.
Precisely.
Okay, but even with all this reading,
Yeah.
there's another hurdle that trips up many English learners. Pronunciation.
Oh, yeah, pronunciation. That's a big one.
How does reading aloud, as some experts suggest, help with that?
It might feel a little awkward at first,
Talking to yourself.
but trust me, reading aloud is a game changer for pronunciation.
Really?
It's like a vocal workout for your English.
Okay.
When you read aloud, you're actively engaging your mouth muscles to produce the sounds,
Okay.
which helps solidify the correct pronunciation in your mind.
Oh, interesting.
Plus, it forces you to pay attention to things like intonation and rhythm, which are crucial for sounding natural when you speak.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a try. But what's the best way to approach reading aloud? Do we just pick up any book and start talking to ourselves?
Not exactly. The key is to be strategic.
Okay.
The research we reviewed highlighted some fantastic tips for maximizing those pronunciation benefits of reading aloud.
Okay, share them with us.
Okay, first, slow down.
Okay,
It's not a race.
right.
Focus on enunciating each word clearly, even exaggerating the sounds a bit at first.
Oh, okay.
This helps your mouth muscles get used to the specific movements needed for English pronunciation.
Okay, that makes sense. I often find myself rushing through sentences, especially when I'm nervous.
Oh, yeah, that's common.
So slow and steady wins the pronunciation race.
Exactly.
What else should we keep in mind?
Another great tip is to listen to audiobooks or podcasts while you read.
Okay.
This gives you a model of how native speakers pronounce the words, the rhythm, the intonation, all those subtle nuances that contribute to natural-sounding speech.
So it's like having a personal pronunciation coach right in your ear. But what if I don't have access to audiobooks or podcasts for the specific book I'm reading?
No problem. You can always record yourself reading aloud and then listen back to it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's a great way to identify areas where you might be struggling and track your progress over time.
Oh, yeah.
It can be a little humbling at first,
I bet.
but it's an invaluable tool for self-assessment.
So it's like having your own personal pronunciation playback.
Exactly.
Okay, what about those tricky words that just seem impossible to pronounce correctly?
Oh, those tongue twisters.
Any tips for tackling those?
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to spend extra time on those challenging words.
Okay.
Break them down syllable by syllable, listen to their pronunciation online, and repeat them until they start to feel comfortable in your mouth.
It's like weight training for your tongue.
Exactly.
So we've chosen our books.
Yep.
We're practicing pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are some specific techniques we can use while reading to really boost fluency? Because reading for comprehension is one thing, but how do we make sure it translates into smooth, confident speaking?
That's where things get really interesting. We're going to explore some powerful techniques like shadowing contextual reading and even interactive books in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, I am so ready for this.
Get ready to level up your reading game and unlock a whole new level of fluency.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, fluency seekers, welcome back for like the grand finale of our deep dive
Yeah.
into how reading can turn us all into like English-speaking rock stars.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered how to choose the right books
Mm-hmm.
and how to supercharge our pronunciation.
Yeah.
But now it's time to unlock those like ninja techniques
Okay.
that turn reading from this passive activity
Right.
into a fluency-boosting powerhouse.
I love it. Let's unleash the power of reading.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
So, it's fascinating to me how these techniques really bridge the gap
Mm-hmm.
between understanding English
Yeah.
and actually speaking it.
It's a hurdle for a lot of people.
Right.
Well-
Like it's one thing to recognize words on a page, but it's a whole other ballgame to like effortlessly weave them into conversation.
Right. It's a different skill set.
Totally. It's like having all the pieces of a puzzle,
Okay.
but needing those expert moves
Yeah.
to put them together into like a beautiful picture.
Yeah. You need the strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's the first technique we're going to unlock today?
All right, let's start with something called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay.
It might sound a little mysterious,
Yeah.
but it's actually pretty simple.
Okay, good.
So it involves finding an audio resource, like an audiobook or a podcast,
Okay.
that has a transcript available, and you listen to the audio while simultaneously reading the transcript aloud,
Okay.
mimicking the speaker's pronunciation, intonation, even their rhythm.
So it's like you're trying to become their vocal twin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But in a way that trains your brain to connect spoken and written English.
Oh, that's interesting. I've heard about this technique before,
Mm-hmm.
but never really understood like how it actually worked. What are the benefits?
Well, shadowing, it's like a workout for your fluency muscles.
Right. Okay.
It forces you to move beyond just passive listening
Right.
and engage actively with the language.
So you're really in it.
Yeah, you're training your mouth to actually produce the sounds accurately and your brain to process the language at the speed of natural speech.
So it's like training your brain to keep up.
Exactly.
Okay, it sounds intense, but also like incredibly effective.
It is. It's a powerful technique.
It's like taking all those English lessons out of the textbook
Mm-hmm.
and injecting them directly into your brain.
I love that analogy.
I'm already feeling more fluent just thinking about it.
Great.
All right. What other techniques can help us like unlock our inner English speaker?
Okay, so another technique that's often overlooked but equally powerful is contextual reading.
Contextual reading.
Okay. It's about shifting your focus from understanding individual sentences to grasping how ideas flow within a larger context.
So instead of reading like a robot,
Right.
dissecting each sentence in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
we're training our brains to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. You're looking for the connections.
How does that help with speaking?
Well, think about it. Conversations are all about connecting ideas.
Okay.
Building on previous points,
Right.
responding in a way that makes sense within the flow of the discussion.
Yeah, like a natural back and forth.
Exactly. And contextual reading it helps you develop that sense of coherence,
Mhm.
that ability to see how language is used to create like a cohesive narrative or argument.
That makes total sense. It's like learning to dance.
Yeah.
You don't just practice the individual steps.
Yeah.
Got to learn how to string them together into like a fluid, graceful sequence.
That's a great analogy.
But how do we actually practice contextual reading? Is
Sure.
it just about reading longer passages?
Well, that's a great starting point.
Okay.
So choose books or articles with engaging storylines or thought-provoking arguments.
Okay.
Pay attention to how sentences connect to each other,
Hmm.
how paragraphs build on previous ideas,
Right.
and how the author uses language to create a sense of flow.
So it's like we're becoming detectives of language.
Exactly.
Uncovering those subtle clues that make English flow naturally.
You got it.
But what about real-world conversations?
Ah, yes, the ultimate test.
How can we practice those through reading?
All right, well, this is where interactive books come in.
Interactive books. Okay.
Think plays,
Okay.
novels with strong dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
even some nonfiction genres that use interviews or conversations.
Oh,
The idea is to choose a book with dynamic dialogue,
okay.
maybe characters with distinct voices and personalities.
Okay, so you can really like get into character.
Exactly. It's like turning reading into a mini drama class.
Oh, I love that. I'm picturing myself lost in a captivating novel,
Yeah.
acting out the conversations,
Great.
experimenting with different intonations and expressions.
Have fun with it.
How fun is that?
It's a fantastic way to practice those real-world conversations, but without the pressure of a live audience.
Right, in the comfort of your own home.
Exactly. You can explore different social contexts, try out new vocabulary and expressions,
Okay.
even experiment with humor and sarcasm.
Oh, that's so important.
It's like giving your inner English speaker a playground to explore and experiment in.
I love it. I feel like we've unlocked like a whole new level of language learning today
I think so too.
by incorporating these techniques into our reading routine.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just expanding our knowledge.
Right.
We're transforming the way our brains process and produce English.
You're rewiring those neural pathways.
Amazing. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Already.
I know time flies when you're having fun learning about fluency.
It does.
So we've uncovered the hidden power of reading,
Yeah.
exploring how it can reshape our vocabulary, refine our grammar,
Yes.
and even rewire our brains to think in English.
Think in English, that's the goal.
We've debunked the myth that reading is a passive activity,
Right.
revealing its true potential as a fluency-boosting powerhouse.
Exactly.
So remember, it's not just about how much you read,
Yeah,
but how you read.
that's key.
Choose books that ignite your curiosity. Experiment with these techniques.
Have fun with it.
And most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Yes. Reading should be enjoyable.
The more you engage with English, the more naturally and effortlessly it will flow from your lips.
It's all about building that positive relationship with the language.
So to our amazing listeners out there, the next time you pick up a book, remember, you're not just reading for pleasure.
Right.
You're training your brain to speak English fluently.
You're becoming a fluency ninja.
Happy reading, everyone, and even happier speaking.